Hello, and welcome to Practically Fearless with Chris Girata. I'm your host, Chris Girata, and for those who don't know, I'm the rector of St. Michael and All Angels in Dallas, Texas. Part of the spirit of being Episcopalian is taking action to better a community. I'm establishing this podcast to highlight people putting in work every day to help the North Texas community and beyond. It's my goal for you, the listener, to enjoy a thought-provoking conversation with my guests each month and leave with a sense of encouragement to make an impact yourself. Now, I'm elated to welcome our inaugural guest, Dr. David Woody III. Dr. Woody is the president and CEO of the Bridge Homeless Recovery Center in downtown Dallas, which houses 800 homeless guests every day. Now, before becoming CEO in 2018, he was Chief Services Officer for the Bridge. He's also served as Program Services Director for Salvation Army North Texas, and he has a PhD in Social Work and Social Policy from Virginia Commonwealth University. Dr. Woody, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Chris. It's exciting to be able to talk about probably a little bit of the connection between my work growing up as an Episcopalian.
Yes.
And how that all fits together with meeting the needs of so many vulnerable folks in our community today.
Well, now I want to get into kind of what made you choose the work you do, but let's start with, give us just a little bit about what the Bridge does for Dallas and the surrounding communities.
Sure. The Bridge Homeless Recovery Center is a facility that's been in place for now. We will celebrate our 15-year anniversary in May, and we are a important low-barrier shelter in downtown Dallas. Our work is to meet the needs of folks who would otherwise be sleeping on the concrete, trying to build just enough trust that they would come onto our campus and at least contemplate what an exit from homelessness might look like. Our model is one of us having on our campus several collaborative relationships with institutions that meet the needs of homeless and vulnerable citizens in our community. We have a clinic that's facilitated by Parkland Hospital and Health Systems. We have a clinic that is facilitated by MetroCare Services for behavioral health, mental health, substance use services. Often those two issues are critical in terms of a citizen becoming homeless. And we have 3 care management teams that ultimately craft an exit strategy, a care and housing plan that facilitates their returning to the community and being able to manage a homeless solution of their own.
Now, what I want to emphasize here, and if you've not been down to the Bridge, I really encourage you to take a look. I promise you, Dr. Woody and his staff would show you all around. There are plenty of things you can do to help the people in our community. Yes. One of the things that really struck me when I visited was that your intention is to help people recover, to really break out of and get housed.
Yes.
So yes, they may need some help right now, but you want to make sure they don't need help in the future if at all possible. So can you give us a word about the way that you surround them with good resources?
Yes, many of the individuals who come to our campus are folks who would tell you that if they had access to some of the resources that we have free of charge on our campus, if they had those resources in their community, that perhaps they would never have made this pilgrimage towards homelessness. Yeah. And so that we would be able to serve 3 hot meals a day, that we have resources for hygiene, clothing resources, a library, folks can do their laundry. There are a percentage of the homeless population that has a companion canine. Many of those folks won't come into shelter because they don't want to abandon their animal. We even have a canine kennel on our campus. And so we want to wrap our arms around folks, provide them with all of the basic needs that they would possess, and then begin to have that conversation about what does an exit from homelessness look like for them, such that we can build within them the skills, talents, any need necessary, such that when they do find a homeless solution, that they can manage it on their own.
My guess is that a lot of people watching this now really sympathize with the work that you do, that the Bridge does, important work. Mm-hmm. But when we think of poverty and homelessness, it can be so daunting, so gigantic, so systemic.
Yes.
I'd love for you to walk us through how an individual could actually make a difference right here in Dallas or right here in North Texas, whether it's through the Bridge or through any other organization that is trying to meet the needs of the people who are so desperately in need right here in our community.
A couple of things to consider. One is an important part of my role is educating people on homelessness. there are a lot of stereotypical things, a lot of myths out there about homelessness. So our organization is heavily data-driven. Our messaging, the way that we engage our guests reflects our sensitivity to the data. And so asking folks to immerse themselves in the community, to do it safely, but to engage folks where they're at. We are in the midst of the optic of homelessness being fairly pervasive, especially on the heels of the pandemic, when so many folks were affected in respect to their physical health, in terms of their employment capacities, that a job may have gone away, that they may have had trauma as a result of the pandemic, the loss of a family member, how it is that getting the coronavirus may have affected them personally, both physically but also emotionally. So there are many dynamics that made folks who were otherwise vulnerable or perhaps one issue away, okay, from being homeless, that has come. And with issues regarding the evictions and folks losing their housing and the cost of housing in our community increasing dramatically, there are a lot of folks who are really vulnerable to the experience. And so the first thing I often ask folks is just to think about, to take a step back and to be able to think critically, okay, about what it might be like for you to have lost, okay, some of the critical pieces of what makes you who you are. Often that's what we experience with our guests, and building just enough trust for them to tell us what that's about. That influences how it is that we talk about what their end strategy is, because we learn what some of the bumps in the carpet may be that we have to try to smooth out, such that when they're back on their feet and on their own, that they have some skills internally to manage their lives.
It's so important that you name the trauma of becoming homeless, because for so many people it might appear to be just a technical problem. Yes. But the technical problem is perhaps even smaller than what goes through the trauma of the individual and their self-identity. And so what do you do to take stock of the individuals who come to you? So it's not just an issue, like a top line issue or a technical issue. It's a person who needs this kind of help. So what do you all do at the Bridge, or what have you seen done in other communities that make that kind of difference for the individual?
There's a couple of things that are what we describe as kind of evidence-based approaches, okay, to engaging someone who might be homeless. The first is to think about how it is that you communicate with them. There's a evidence-based practice. It's called motivational interviewing. Okay, to actually be present with a person and to come across as non-judgmental and open to the uniqueness of the person is really important. Also on our campus, we also implement what we describe as a trauma-informed care approach to our work, okay? That the notion of just being homeless is traumatic, but then that you may have all of these other environmental experiences that just enhance that trauma, all right, could block how it is that you communicate with folks. So approaching folks with that trauma-informed perspective kind of opens folks up to the potential of just enough trust for them to be able to share with you how it is that they've come to their place, and to be open about, well, this is, if I had a dream, this is what I think I would like to do. One of the ways that we try to allow folks to even experience that on our campus is to help us. We have a great relationship with the Stew Pot in terms of preparing our meals, okay? And so folks will come and actually help us to deliver a meal service, okay? And that's bigger than just preparing a food tray or filling a cup of water, but that also offers folks an opportunity to simply sit down and be in the presence of folks who have been homeless. And homeless folks are extremely respectful. They and are very open to telling their story, and to have on listening ears, and to be able to take that in. For many of us, that our lives are busy, we're always thinking about the next thing, but often to take on some of what we want for the Bridge environment to be, which is one of respite. Take a deep breath. Think about what's going on around you, and to engage a guest in serving a meal, or through serving a meal, in what has their life been like, and to talk with them about where is it that they would want to be? What are their goals?
Now, I want to lift up something you just said, because you said that many of your guests are respectful. I think that in my experience, there's a pretty significant level of fear around working with and caring for people who find themselves homeless.
Yes.
I think that there's a lot of misconceptions. You mentioned myths earlier about the way that people find themselves in homelessness.
Yes.
And so I'd love for you to talk about maybe the number one myth that you have, debunked in your experience, that people who have capacity, perhaps it's a hurdle that they can't quite get over in order to come down and actually meet a person or a family who are walking through homelessness. Because I agree with you, I find that they are so very respectful, and would love for you to talk about that myth or those barriers, because I do want people who are watching this to leave thinking, I want to go myself. I want to experience this myself. Check it out. And that little baseline of fear might prevent someone from saying yes. So I'd love for you to try to get that out of the way.
Okay. And so let's start there with the notion of fear. Okay. There are many folks who come to our campus, and we try to do the best job possible in terms of describing them what our environment is like, how it is that we will engage them at the gate, our safety and security responsibilities and roles that we take very seriously to make the experience safe and secure. Nonetheless, as you described, most folks come to the campus with fear, and they won't share that, okay? But I can typically see it in people's faces, and so what I often do is to mention or to ask them how are they feeling just about coming up. When you came up to my office, probably one of the things, our first thing is I said, well, how are y'all feeling?
You did.
Okay, that kind of thing, and that often allows folks to talk about, well, I don't know about this, I don't know what's happening here, but to allow folks to express that in such a way that they're not going to be judged about that, because even as Christians often we're not supposed to judge. That's what people say. But we may come to the bridge with preconceived notions. And what I try to do is engage folks in a conversation about those things, okay? Because I'm pretty certain that when we go out and we walk about, they're going to be shocked at what it feels like, okay? That the warmth. The fact that folks will just walk up to me and say, Dr. Woody, I need your help with this, and that I would listen, even with folks being around me, and that I would ask them, well, who is your care manager? Because that's the relationship with whom you probably need to be carrying what I've listened to, such that they can address it to the need and levels that you would perceive. And so having someone to come and engage on our campus, accepting the notion of fear and allowing us to wrap our arms even around you as a visitor, right? And address that. And most folks they won't say, well, Dr. Woody, I was really afraid when I came on the campus, but they will say, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
That sounds right.
And with a deep sense of, I guess, relief, but also a passion about, okay, what's next? What can I do to help to know that I don't need to be afraid?
So I'd want people to know that at the bridge, there is this sense of peace and calm that might surprise a lot of people.
Most people, yes.
I don't know exactly what people think, but I would venture a guess that most people have not been to a shelter or a center where the majority of people are going through homelessness.
Exactly.
And so whatever image is in their mind is not what I experienced at the bridge.
Right.
It was actually so very calm. People were relieved. And my guess is they were relieved to have that secure experience. They could actually take a deep breath. They didn't have to look over their shoulder. Right. They might even catch a nap. There are a few people napping. It was great. And that calm made the people we were with feel very comfortable. Right. And so I do like that you picked up on this general sense. I mean, something I say to my congregation all the time. What's the first thing that angels tell humans in the Bible?
Yes.
Do not be afraid. That's it. Say it
Amazing.
all the time.
Yes.
And for one reason is because I think angels are probably scary looking. But the other is fear is such a motivator. Yes, it is. Human motivator. It can keep us bounded from one another, and it can take it can keep us on an issue level rather than on a personal level.
Exactly.
And what you offer, and what I hope that the people watching will do, is receive the invitation to actually go and take this issue and make it human.
Exactly.
Because that exposure matters so much.
Exactly. It's kind of without that, to allow yourself, and we're in an environment now where so many folks are being led by things that they've heard, passionately shared with them and that kind of thing, as opposed to feeling empowered to check something out on your own. Okay, and having the confidence, exactly, the courage to do that. And what I would say that because we're asking our guests to take that risk, we have to have a staff and an environment that allows that, offers a soft landing for folks who would take that risk.
So, if there's a person watching who says, I actually want to do something, what is the do something that you would invite them into?
Okay. I talked a little bit about serving a meal.
Yep.
I have other things as I'm thinking just off the top of my head. We have clothing that we get daily. We have an expansive clothing closet to come and want to assist with that. We get so many in-kind donations, okay? Primarily to do a couple of things. Number one is when a guest is housed, they leave our campus with excitement, but also we offer them a welcome basket, okay, with all the basics that you would have when you
like
move into an exactly,
yeah.
okay. We get those kind of donations regularly. We try to house at least one guest a day. That's a organizational goal. Okay, in an environment here in Dallas where there's not enough affordable or workforce housing. Okay, so for us to be able to experience with a guest having their own key to get into their own apartment and to offer them a welcome basket is really an important thing. And so to have folks come onto the campus and help us assemble those things, to help us in terms of what we need to order to keep our stock of welcome baskets going is really important. Katara Jefferson, who's our community engagement manager, she is always looking for help in that way. We also have folks helping us who are in critical points on our campus. The services building where you came onto the campus, that receptionist has to take time for lunch or has break times. To have someone come onto the campus and for us to assist a volunteer with actually being able to engage guests and direct them to where their next appointment is or to make appointments with a care manager. We want to train folks up to do that. That is a rewarding experience for many volunteers who otherwise wouldn't expect that they could come onto campus and engage a person in such a guiding, supportive sort of way as well. We have many of those kinds of opportunities. Come and walk a dog. Okay, okay. Help us with our cleanliness. We have a group of experiences called Guest Giving Back on our campus. Folks who are close to making a transition into their own housing are asked to donate 1 to 5 hours a week in just giving back to the campus in terms of, we want to offer a campus which is warm, secure, challenging as necessary, but for folks to be in a space which is clean, comfortable, and for guests to help us with that. We have so many opportunities to help out with that kind of thing. And so folks may have talents. It says data entry. We need help. We track every service that we deliver. Okay, we need help with getting that data entered and then analyzing it, okay, such that we can tell our story in an eloquent way. So you may have a talent or a skill that you think is something that, because you're not at your job, that wouldn't be transferable to the bridge. I can assure you that there's some way that we can transfer that skill, that's something that you're comfortable with, and put that to great use in terms of what we offer our guests.
Well, it sounds like, to distill that down, to summarize that,
Yes.
is that you just need people to be who they are.
Exactly.
To be kind, to be considerate.
Yes.
If they've got a particular skill, you need that skill.
That's right.
And if they don't think they have a particular skill,
Let
just
us help
smile.
you figure it out. That's right. Exactly.
Sit,
That's
be
right.
Nice.
Yes.
Let someone have a lunch break.
Exactly.
That's
Yes.
really not so hard. And it supports everything that you're trying to do to help change our city for the better.
Exactly.
And so,
Yes.
before we finish, I would love for you to consider personally where you seek out hope in your life. Where do you find those little nuggets of courage, those little bits of hope that when you go and face such a daunting challenge as homelessness in our city, you get refilled and you find your own rootedness to keep on with that hope to make a difference. How about you? Where do you find that?
I would say, first of all, I make a long trek to the Bridge Homeless Recovery Center every day. And so when I get to the bridge, the first thing I do is I'm prayerful and I look to the Bible. I read a Bible verse. That's what I do when I get there every day. And folks know that. If they see me in the office and I've got I won't interrupt. But that for me is grounding, okay? I would say a second thing for me is the ability to put someone else's needs first. I talk a lot with our staff about the notion of humility, okay? Where many of our guests are at, I could experience that one thing that tipped me into homelessness. An awareness of that, an appreciation of that is important, but also going back to my upbringing and thinking about the notion of giving back that my family, that was big in my family, my parents talked about it a good deal, and to know that I'm giving back in a way that I never would have thought would have such an impact on not only today, we probably saw 550 guests on our campus, but then I've got 100 employees who see me modeling that and would come alongside me to do that and have such an incredible impact on our community. It's invaluable. I don't have a way of even conceptualizing how good a feeling it is that I can go to prayer and say thank you to God for what He's allowed me to do.
Well, if I'm gonna be so bold, it kind of sounds like you're loving your neighbor.
Exactly.
Hey,
very much.
look at
Exactly.
that.
Yes, exactly.
It is such a treat to get to talk to you.
Well, I thank you for having me.
I want
It's
you to
been incredible.
know how inspiring you are to me, and I hope that those who are watching today feel that kind of inspiration, and not just as a warm feeling, but as sort of a little kick in the pants.
Inspiration,
To
I
get
hope.
out and to do something to change their own life and to love their neighbor as themselves. I think that is really what we need to help change our world for the better.
Exactly.
If you want to learn more about the Bridge, head to bridgehrc.org. You can donate to them, whether monetary or food or essential goods, and they're always looking for volunteers too. So Dr. Woody, I thank you so much for being here with us. And remember, you have the power to be fearless.